Hello everyone, and welcome to Webinar 2 in our Growing Resilience Through the Ages series titled Building Resilience in the Early Years. The focus of this webinar will be on children aged between 0 to 6 years of age. We are delighted to be delivering this webinar to you in partnership with Calpol. My name is Victoria, and I, along with my colleague Siobhan, will be your hosts for this webinar. Both myself and Siobhan are Community Engagement Managers for the ISPCC. And we're hoping that after maybe watching the first webinar, Supporting You and Your Child Develop Resilience, you will now have a better understanding of what we mean by resilience and why it's so important in our lives. We hope you will take some tips, skills and strategies from this series and pick up some new interesting facts from the webinar today. We know that babies in utero and after birth up until 6 years of age are going through a crucial stage in their overall development and in strengthening their resilience. Parents and carers play a vital role in the stage of development. Siobhan and I will explore how we can strengthen a child's resilience under the three pillars of resilience, which we talked about in the first series: social support, self-regulation, and self-worth. I'm going to hand you over to Siobhan now, and she's going to look at the importance of social supports and the power of relationships in strengthening your child's resilience. So take it away, Siobhan.
Thanks a million for that, Victoria. And so, as you mentioned, I'm going to talk about the building of a trusting and caring relationship with your infant and your young child, as this is where resilience begins and where the foundation is laid. So before a child can develop self-esteem or before they can learn to self-regulate, they're very dependent on a trusting adult, the parent, the caregiver, for them to develop feelings of safety and security. And these are the core for developing resilience. So these supports are essential in infancy, and they continue to be important throughout their childhood. So from birth, your child is completely dependent on you, their parent, their caregiver, for all their physical, their emotional needs, and the way their child develops resilience is by building trust in you, others, and the world around them. So in practical terms, Victoria, the baby's physical needs must be met by feeding, by changing, keeping them warm and clean. And their emotional needs are met by holding your baby, gently rocking, singing, keeping them close, and being responsive to their cues. By you as a parent being able to attune to your child's needs, your child then develops trust in the world. Your child learns that when they are distressed, somebody will come. They learn that they're loved, they're cared for, and they create a worldview that people are essentially good and kind. And this then, in turn, increases their own resilience. So from the development of trust in the world and the unconditional love and nurturance that they receive from their parent or caregiver, the child is then more capable of being able to develop relationships with other family members, with childminders, with teachers and friends as they grow and get older. So looking at caring relationships, they provide accepting places where your child can learn to regulate their bodies, regulate their feelings, their attention, their thoughts and behaviour. So positive daily interactions with parents teach children how to have caring relationships with other important people in their lives. And it really makes it easier then for them to reach out to others when they need help. Victoria, I'm now just going to chat a little bit more about some practical ideas for building that caring relationship with your child. So the first thing that we would say to parents that we work with would be, give your child attention and affection with lots of smiles and hugs. And by doing this really helps your child feel secure, loved and accepted. It's also about spending time with your child, playing with them. So even if it might be difficult to get that 15 minutes a day to play with your child, do 30-second blasts when you have the time. Give your child your full attention and let them lead in the play. Playing together is such a great way for you to connect to your child, get to know them better and have lots of fun with them. It's also a great way for children to develop physically, develop their imagination and also their social skills. And we hear so much around the importance of tummy time, in the baby age. And at this point, this is where you can start introducing the fun and the play element.
Yeah, that's something when I've worked with parents before, that it's almost a little bit foreign to them at the start of realizing how important play is, for many reasons, maybe as well that they didn't actually get played with when they were younger, or it's just something that they don't think it's important to make time for. But when you do, it can be such a fun and lovely way of creating that bond with your child and just even de-stressing for yourself.
Exactly, very true. That bond, it's building that bond, that attachment, which is so, so important, especially in the early months of having a baby. It's also around comforting your child. So when your child is frightened, they're sad or angry, being comforted helps them feel as if they're not alone with their big feelings. They'll feel closer to you, and they'll learn then healthy ways to comfort themselves and others as they get older. It's around listening to your child's big feelings, their thoughts and their ideas. And this lets them know that you think what they have said to you is important. So by listening to them, they then know that you've heard what they've said and what they've said is important. For that younger child, they may not be able to identify that big feeling. They may not be able to verbalize it or say it. So as a parent, you can name it and say it to help them with that process. It's also around showing empathy. So empathy means seeing things from other people's points of view. So this doesn't necessarily mean that you have to agree with them. It just means that you're letting them know you understand how they feel. So when children feel understood, it's easier for them to try and understand others. And empathy is the foundation for developing caring relationships with other people. Like I just mentioned there a minute ago as well, around helping your child identify and express their feelings, it might be good maybe to just start off with a couple, because your child is young. We're looking at the 0 to 6 age group. They don't necessarily may have a big range of all the different feelings. So it might be just identifying the happy, sad, angry, scared feelings, and point out that other people have these feelings too. You know, mum feels happy when we're out playing together. Mum feels sad when, you know, she misses someone. So it's letting them know that everyone has these feelings. Mom, dad, you know, cousins, family, whoever.
Such a good point.
Another thing then is around reducing screen time. So experts recommend that children under 2 years should not have any screen time. So children aged between 2 and 4 should watch less than 1 hour per day. So again, instead of trying to find things to do that will build your relationship with your child, like reading together or spending time outdoors. And it's looking at maybe reading or telling your child stories about people who show compassion, who show kindness and understanding for others. Or what's also really good, and I would talk about this a lot with the parents that I work with, is just reading your own stories, telling your own stories to your young child. The toddler loves to hear about when they were a baby and the first time they had a piece of carrot and what that was like. They love to hear about when they were younger and all the stories. So it's actually just making up your own stories and telling them that as well. So it doesn't necessarily that you have to physically have books there beside you. Being a positive role model in your child's life is so important for increasing resilience. So as a parent, you can increase your child's resilience by modeling the way you handle difficult situations. By staying calm and being flexible with life's challenges, you are modeling to your child positive ways to handle stress. And this is so important because, especially in the younger years, your child will copy a lot of what you do and how you act as a parent or caregiver. So dependent on the way you deal with stress or with anxiety or when things maybe don't go well, they see this. And then when things aren't going so well for them, so when they're doing their building blocks and they get to block 3 and the tower falls down, you know, they get really frustrated and angry. They will mimic how you have maybe dealt with when you've been stressed or angry as well. So it's just so important to remember that in your interactions with your child.
Yeah, no, Sean, definitely. And I think, you know, you named it there already as well about talking about our feelings and just being that, as I said, that role model, even in all the practical skills you named there, we can be a role model for our children. And as you said, you know, as parents and caregivers, we are their biggest role models, and especially at this age, we're kind of their whole world. So it's important that we model to our children and so that they can have those skills. So would you be able to share with us some more practical examples of being a positive role model for our children?
Yeah, absolutely, Victoria. So firstly and importantly, it's around taking care of your own physical and mental health. So as a parent or as a carer, you know, it's about getting enough sleep. It's around eating healthy meals, exercising regularly, and you promote how these behaviours reduce daily stress. It's around modelling empathy to your child by showing compassion and kindness to others. Take breaths when you're feeling stressed and give yourself time to respond in a calm way rather than reacting to the stress response in your body. And bearing in mind, these are all things then that your child will copy and mimic. Express your emotions in a healthy way and be in charge of your emotions. Acknowledge when you're tired, when you're frustrated, when you're sad, and talk about positive ways you'll deal with your emotions. And by doing that, you're really teaching your child to be able to regulate as well. Use humour and playfulness with your child. This can help to reduce stress. And look at challenging situations with a more positive outlook in stressful moments. So, for example, your toddler is refusing to go to the car, they won't leave the house, they're not going anywhere. It's, change it around and play a game and go, let's hop like bunnies to get to the car. And before you know it, whatever it was they were refusing to get into the car, all of a sudden they're hopping like bunnies to the car. Another example is maybe your child doesn't want to get into their pajamas before bed at night time. So again, just change the distraction of it. It's like quick, the floor is lava and we need to get our lava suits on to protect us, which is the pajamas. Yeah. So the more playful and fun you make it, the better. And kids love all of this sort of stuff.
I think as well, even as parents or caregivers, we can find that fun too. Like I had a mom who said that with the pajama thing. Actually, I gave that as just an example of something, and she tried it out, and she actually found it fun, and it was something that it did make bedtime a lot easier for even her. So yeah, that's a really lovely example.
Yeah, it's really good. It is. It's about making the distraction then, and they forget what it is that they didn't want to do or what was going on for them as well. So, and it can take the stress out of it then for a parent or carer as well if it's distracted that way. And then lastly, practical thing is basically in relation to reaching out for help and support in difficult times, as this shows your child that it's okay to ask for help and everybody struggles at times.
That's such a good point. And I think that's something that parents can sometimes find difficult to do because we want to be the strong person for our child. We don't want our child sometimes maybe knowing our weaknesses. But to make it that it's not a weakness to look for support is so, so important. So hearing them reaching out to maybe your parent yourself, saying, hey, I need help with this, or a friend on the phone, or just bringing in those age appropriate examples can be really, really helpful. So thank you so much for that, Siobhan. It's great to know the different ways in which parents can demonstrate being a positive role model. So we're going to now move on, and I'm going to look at the importance of validating feelings and setting boundaries in terms of supporting the development of self-regulation, which we mentioned as well is a real key pillar for resilience. So when babies are born, they have little ability to self-regulate. They depend on their parents or their carers to meet those basic needs, something that you'd mentioned earlier on, Siobhan, such as feeding, staying warm, trying to get to sleep, all that. So from infancy, parents and any primary caregiver help children learn through a process called co-regulation. So by using their voice, movements, so your body language, any kind of effects or gestures, parents and primary caregivers can really help their infants and young children know that they are felt and that they're attuned to them. So this helps your baby and your child to become a little bit calmer and to be able to regulate themselves. Children and babies can learn to develop that capacity for self-regulation by doing these things. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to talk a little bit about ACT. So the ACT model, which is a tool that parents can use at home to support their children to have that felt with and attuned to experience, which supports the validation of feelings and strengthens the capacity to self-regulate. The ACT model was developed by Dr. Gary Landreth, a leading figure in play therapy, and something we use a lot, Siobhan, in our practice. It involves 3 simple adaptable steps. So acknowledge the feeling, communicate the limit, and target acceptable alternatives. So first I'll look at A, which is the acknowledging the feelings. So letting a child know that you know how they are feeling helps them to feel heard and understood. Acknowledging emotions also helps an upset child address their feelings and can help them calm down faster. So as an example, saying something like, I know you are angry and want to hit me. Just being able to say that and being able to, as Siobhan's mentioned, about role modeling, can just be so helpful to get them used to that kind of language. So then the C in the model is communicate the limit. It is all right for a child to have feelings, but it's not appropriate for them to behave destructively or inappropriately. And often I get that as well, Siobhan, where parents would say, well, I want to be there for them, but I also don't want them hitting me, or I don't want them hitting their brother or their sister. So this is kind of where that part comes in. So after validating their emotions, let them know that what they're doing is not. Be sure to word the limit so that you are saying no to the behavior and not the child themselves. This can happen, for some parents, this really comes into play when your child is in the middle of, the tantrum or is really upset, making sure to focus on the acknowledge the feeling part. And then later on, when the child has calmed down, then bring in the C, this communicating the limit. That's so important, because that's when they can hear it, and that's when they'll be able to remember it for future reference. So for example, instead of saying, you can't throw that, you can say, but I'm not for hitting. So if the child is lashing out at you, or, instead of all the kind of no's and shouting and, just I'm not for hitting, it's also communicating to your child, as you mentioned, Siobhan, that empathy piece as well. So this puts the focus on the child's action rather than their feeling or the person. So again, it's not blaming the child, it's focusing on the action. Behaviors are easier.
Sorry, Victoria, that's so true. And as you mentioned there, it's like it's looking at, as you said, it's the behavior that's not okay. So it's, it's okay to say, I love you, but I do not like that you hit your brother, or you did, in that sense. So you're still giving them that unconditional love, but letting them know that their behavior is not okay.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something, when you think about it, Siobhan, like we ourselves can even bring this model into effect in our own lives, because somebody might be mad or upset at us, and we can take it personally as going, oh, it's me as a person, but sometimes it's not. It's just maybe how we acted in that moment or what we said, but it's not us as an entire person. So to bring that into our child, we don't want them feeling like we don't want to hear from them, or we don't care what they're feeling right now. It's just that it's the behavior, and we know as parents that we have to tackle that behavior. So definitely great point. Because behaviors are easier for a child to change than feelings. Which is why the third step is to offer choices of other ways to behave. So the third part of the ACT model is target. So target acceptable alternatives. So simply telling a child no can lead them to feeling frustrated, and they're trying to deal with their emotions and need to learn how to handle them safely. So offer other ways that they can express themselves that are acceptable to you. It is also important that the child feels they can make their own choice, which helps them learn responsibility and problem solving, which again is building their resilience. Offer one choice for your younger child, because again, giving too many choices sometimes can also be a problem. So you can choose to hit the pillow. We're putting that in putting that example of a child who's throwing a tantrum, they're lashing out, they're hitting us, for an older child, you might be able to give a few alternatives. You can choose to hit the pillow, or you can choose to maybe do a breathing exercise. But for a younger child, again, you don't want to give too many options. So you can choose to hit the pillow instead. Again, just giving them something else. So putting the ACT model together, it will sound something like this. So I know that you are angry and want to hit me, but I'm not for hitting. You can choose to hit the pillow instead. And at the start, Siobhan, I don't know about you, but sometimes parents can feel this way of talking and communicating to their child is a little bit alien, or it sounds a bit weird, or, but it's actually really helpful. And the more you practice, the more you put this into play, the easier and the more natural it comes, and the more it's going to help your child as they're getting older with these types of behaviors.
You're right. And I think it's that communication piece. I know we talk a lot about communication and how that's really important. And it's them communicating with their child, isn't it, in that way? Yeah. And again, I mean, I know we've worded it like that, but a parent or carer is going to word it how it fits into their kind of language within their family, in that sense. But as you said, as you get used to it and you get using it, it really is so helpful. And it's literally having that boundary of what's okay and what's not okay when it becomes to different behaviors. And I suppose that's really important in the early years, because as young children and toddlers and all the way up to 6 years of age, kids don't know, and they're learning and they're testing. So it's really important that as a parent that there is boundaries of what is okay and what's not okay when it comes to the behavior. So it's a really good model to work from.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Setting the stage, as you said, especially when they are at their early years. We want to be able to put this in for the future years as well. So having this as our foundations is we've seen ourselves, Siobhan, can be really helpful. And Dr. Bruce Perry has created a simple sequence actually to support parents to intervene when their child does feel dysregulated, and in supporting them to learn to think and reflect. So this sequence is then named the 3 R's. So the 3 R's is to regulate, relate, and reason. So first, I'll just talk a little bit about regulate. So help your child to regulate and calm their emotions. How can we do this? So by using soothing but limited language, having a safe space to go stepping back and allowing them time to process. Don't add to the feelings by shouting or adding fuel to the fire. And that can be so difficult as a parent, especially if it's something that they've done 1,000 times before, or, we ourselves have our own emotions and feelings as a parent, and, we might be feeling as well frustrated, and we just, it just happens. But by doing that, as I said, if you're adding fuel to the fire, they're not going to hear it at that part as well. Their little brains are just developing. When they're feeling an emotion, it's just taking up everything, and they don't have the capacity to listen or hear what you're saying. So it's more important to regulate in that moment and to try to calm the situation. So then we go into relate. So relate, we need to connect with and relate to your child. So how do we do this? By using calm and sensitive dialogue, acknowledging how they feel and how that is hard for them. So even something like, you seem angry right now. That must be really difficult for you. You seem upset. You seem really sad. Again, as Siobhan, you mentioned earlier, just putting those words to it. And then thirdly, the last part of this is reason. So we can support our child or young person to reflect and learn and remember and articulate and self-regulate their emotions. So how do we do this again? By teaching them the language of emotions and strategies for regulating them. Use story to explore these emotions and remind them of their safe place and the safe people. So again, Siobhan, like you were saying earlier on, it doesn't always have to be a storybook. We can come up with our own story ourselves, or give them examples of when they were previously did something, and remember before how you felt afterwards when you hit your sister, or even bringing back that as well, the model of ACT, again, just giving them something else to focus on can be so helpful.
Absolutely, some great strategies there, Victoria. I really hope that parents and carers can use these. Regulate, relate, reason, fantastic. The ACT model, it's really great. And I really like the ACT model. It really, the acknowledges the communication and the target. It's very easy to remember. And I've used this work with families that I work with, and parents have told me that it is easy to remember. When you just think of ACT, you just have to think of that word. And it's really helped them. And one parent that I worked with actually said it really focused her on acknowledging and understanding how her child was feeling, as she felt sometimes it was something that she forgot. She forgot to kind of see it from their perspective in that sense. And that model just really kind of focused her back into that thinking. So really good. Thank you for sharing those. Okay, guys, so far in this webinar, we've talked about the importance of social supports. We've talked about the power of relationships in strengthening your child's resilience, as well as the importance of validating feelings, setting boundaries in terms of supporting the development of self-regulation. And Victoria, I believe you are now going to focus on the development of confidence and self-worth in infants and young children.
Yeah, so just continuing on from that, again, the building resilience piece and that pillar. So children need to feel safe and secure to develop self-confidence. So when you comfort your baby, respond to your baby's cries and needs, and talk, play with them, he or she knows that she or he is loved and is important to you. Confident babies are free to explore and learn because they know that loved one will always be there for them. It means that they can be curious. It means that they can go ahead and go looking around them because they know they have that safe harbor, that anchor behind them, and that helps to build their confidence. When they crawl away to check something out, you wait for them and be that safe home base in case they need you. And when your baby sees your delight when she or he makes a new discovery, like finding a toy that rolled behind the chair, it makes them want to explore more and more and want to come back and show you. So being confident also makes it easier for babies to move into group situations, such as childcare, or even later on when they start attending school. They carry that sense of security you have given them wherever they go, even when you're not together. You help your baby feel safe and secure when you respond to his or her cries and other communications. For example, picking them up when they need comfort, getting the toy if they're requesting that, or if they're feeling upset, that you can be that person to make them feel better. If they're pointing off to a shelf and they're showing if they're showing something to you, by you being there and being attentive to that and showing that love and affection, they're going to bring that with them as they grow. So it's that loving bond between you and your baby that makes them feel safe and helps strengthen their confidence and overall resilience. And sometimes I think parents can find it difficult to think, well, I don't want to either be spoiling them, or I don't have a lot of time. But just doing those small little steps first of just hugging, being there, and just being near them even when they're playing, all those little things, that's all building their confidence and is going to help again when you're not there, or when big kind of things happen, like going to school for the first time or meeting new people. All those things are so important.
Great. Thank you so much, Victoria, for all that. And we have now come to the end of our webinar. So I really hope that as a parent or carer that you found it really helpful. Again, I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank Calpol for partnering up with the ISPCC to deliver this webinar series to you. And before we finish, I'd just like to remind you of the supports that ISPCC offer. So we have our support line, which is open Monday to Friday between the hours of 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. And you can call them directly on 01 522 4300. And we also have an email address, which is parentingsupport@ispcc.ie. We have our Parenting Hub on the ISPCC, which publishes articles in relation to parenting and parenting support on a range of topics. So take a look, and that can be found on the ispcc/parenthub.ie. Then the services that we have for children and young people is our Childline listening service, and this is for children and young people up to and including the age of 18. This is open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and it can be contacted via phone on 1-800-666666, text 50101, or live message www.childline.ie. If you have any questions or you just want to chat to somebody around parenting supports, you can contact our community engagement team, which is myself, Siobhan Harvey, and my colleague, Victoria, who will be delighted to present with our webinar today. You can contact me on siobhan.harvey@ispcc.ie and victoria.howson@ispcc.ie. Thanks again, everybody, and thanks, Victoria.
Thanks so much, Siobhan. Thanks, everyone.